Well, it's a good morning from the studios of Brisbane, Australia, and this is the very first time that we've actually done a broadcast on a Wednesday morning, but it's actually going to be Tuesday night, 7 o'clock in Florida. Our guests today are actually from Florida, but what I'd like to do is actually introduce you to our new co-host in the United States, none other than Elise, and it's a very warm welcome to you, Elise, and thank you for coming and joining us.
Of course. I am so grateful and thankful, honored to be here, honored to be part of this beautiful family and of being part of Dreaming the New Dream. Just for a little background, so people know what I do and how I know what I know. I used to be an engineer for 25 years in corporate America. I moved to do quantum hypnosis for 6 years, at which point I was asked by my guides to stop doing that and to just live in this 5D reality. I live the life of my dreams. I travel the world. And I also do podcasts such as a tarot show with an Australian, Marie. And that's how Jeff found me. So here I am today. My first guest is Ed Strachar. And I am very excited to have him as our first guest because of his amazing background of all the things that he has done and he has accomplished. My God, just so many testimonials on his page and just really pretty amazing background. And Ed, so much to say. So I would prefer if you give us your background and tell us how this all got started and how you get to where you are today.
Well, Alicia, thank you for having me. Jeffrey, thank you for having me on radio FM 88 Australia. Really super honored that you have me here. So, where we are at the present day, I heal people over Zoom across the planet, and we're talking about knees, backs, diseases you never heard of. My specialty is people saying, the doctor can't find anything. That's because doctors look at the physical level. That's why they're called physicians. I look at the soul level, the light body, that and part of us that you can't see for the most part. Most people can't see it. We know it's there. It's the part of us that's eternal. Some would refer to it as your soul. It's the part that all the evil is after. It's the part that they try to vaccinate and draw it out from you. This is your soul. And there's a fundamental principle in the universe. When you heal the soul, the mind and body follow. So all people who are sick or injured, they get a corrupted soul, no different than a dented car or a car in an accident. So we've got to heal the soul, and then the soul will fix the physical body. Now, they don't want you to know this. There's no money in healing. We know that. The ancient Greeks knew this. The ancient Chinese knew this, and a lot of the native peoples knew this. So, for the last 12 years, I've been doing just that, and I've healed many Australian clients, even some Aboriginal Australian clients, which I'm very honored to connect to. Previous to that, I started out of university. I'm an electronics engineer and mathematician. I got pretty good at that. I invented a chip used in every bomb, tank, and missile in the U.S. and NATO. And then I went to see who were building all those bomb, tanks, and missiles for. That was the big bad Soviet Union, the Russians. And I picked up Russian right away. I couldn't understand why. Neither could anyone else. I made a lot of Russian friends and started studying chess with the grandmasters there. I got pretty good at chess, but chess doesn't really pay the bills, and it doesn't really impress chicks at parties either. So when I came back from Russia, I had a lot of chess skills, but not much more. And a neighbor came over, and he was a school teacher, and he was complaining that his students would be given a month to read like an 80 or 100-page book. He was an 8th grade teacher. And they wouldn't read it. And I laughed. I said, yeah, that's why I studied engineering. Well, those were the subjects, engineering and math, that had the least amount of reading. Because I would read a book and my eyes would get tired. My mind would drift off. I'd fall asleep. I'd forget what I was reading. But now I knew something about mental training. Now from chess is all about focus and brain power. reading is all about focus and brain power. Few people realize that. Certainly very few teachers do. And I said, invite me in there. He did. 4 classes. We had students reading books in 15 minutes or less, and they could stand up and tell you what they read. And I taught them in less than an hour because of the miracle of mental training. Mental training, what your great tennis players and athletes do to perform better. Well, if mental training can have an impact on your physical capability, which we know it does, think about the power it could have on reading. So I created something called Reading Genius. And in the 90s, I taught it all across Australia, as well as the rest of the world. In fact, when I taught at the U.S. Air Force Academy, and this is documented on my readinggenius.com website, in a one-day training, not even one day, 5 hours, the cadets, some of them read in excess of the Guinness Book of World Records, 40, 50, 60, 70 pages a minute with good comprehension, could stand up and tell you what they read.
Wow.
Yes. So people say, well, how is that possible? And I say, well, if you believe in this institution for idiot development, or what you probably refer to as school, then you can't understand how that's possible. However, when you realize that you open your eyes at birth, you can see mommy, daddy, the lights, the doctor, everything all at once at the speed of light, and you never needed lessons. And the way they taught you to read, if you were looking at a rugby field, you'd read one blade of grass at a time, one syllable at a time. That's how they taught you. That's how they stupefied people. And so as you got older, you just started reading to yourself one word at a time. And that's still how most people read. So they've got more power than 100 supercomputers between their ears. Most of those supercomputers are on idle, and they're reading one word at a time. All we have to do, and what I developed a system to do, is break the habit of that and turn on the brain power, which is natural, not something that we have to develop. It's natural, just like when you open your eyes at birth, and you can sweep your eyes across and down the page and understand it brilliantly, understand it far better, because you understand in phrases and ideas far better than you understand in words, which you have to kind of piece together and figure out the phrases and ideas. So I created Reading Genius, got very wealthy as a result of that. And I started having premonitions when I would teach this. I started getting signals or messages about various students, and I would, chat with them, and I'd say something, and they'd say, how did you know that? And so I wanted to expand my ability, the sixth sense. So I ended up going to Thailand and studying with a teacher, and literally 2 chairs and connecting to the sixth sense, because my left brain engineering mind could not figure out how someone could just pick something out of the air and talk about it. I could tell a psychic friend about my friend James in Australia, and I didn't have to give him a last name. I didn't have to show him a picture or a birthday, none of that. And they could tune in and tell me all about this person. They were 90 or 95% correct. How? I couldn't figure that out. Well, I did. And then all of a sudden, I went from being a negative millionaire, or I went from being a millionaire to a negative millionaire. Everything started deteriorating. I was a born-again Christian at the time, thinking God was going to send the Son to save me, and all I had to do was eat chips and watch Seinfeld reruns and wait. Okay? And when mirrors started breaking and people started saying I did things that I didn't do, and all my deals started breaking, all my finances started breaking, I'll never forget, I put together a publishing series to submit to a publisher back in the days when we submitted book proposals. And the publisher says, oh, this is exactly the type of stuff we love to publish. You're the exact type of guy we'd love to work with. I said, great. He says, call my office Saturday morning. I called his office Saturday morning. No answer, no answer, no answer. Got his voicemail. A few hours later, I got an email and he said, well, we decided to go in another direction. And I could feel this dark face laughing as if it just sabotaged another deal. And this had happened to me about 15 times in a row by now. And I was desperate. I was completely broke. And thoughts of suicide were coming to me real fast. And I prayed with all my pastors, hand on the Bible, in Jesus' name, and nothing happened. Nothing. And then a friend of a friend at the last moment, because I was ready to tie that noose with the last $20 I had, and that was enough to walk to the Home Depot down the road and buy a rope. And I had to walk because my car got repossessed. And he gave me the email address of someone, and I just emailed that person. That person called me back, a southern accent, mountain accent, as I could detect. And I told him, he says, I started telling him what was going on, and he says, oh, I don't need to hear all that. Just let me see what I can do, and I'll email you in the morning. Well, I woke up the next morning, and I was incredibly energized, very focused, wide awake. That dark cloud that had been following me was gone. And I opened up my email, and he says I had 36 curses on me. I said, curses? I didn't believe in curses. If you don't believe in them, they don't affect you, I was told. Yeah, well, he said, Ed, just because you don't believe in gravity doesn't mean you're not going to fall down the stairs if you slip. Okay, and his name was Raymond Grace. He saved my life. And I went to study with him, and I learned all of what I learned, Elisa, Jeff, why under the guise of the Catholic Church, the U.S. cavalry rounded up these Native Americans, put them in giant pits, poured oil on them, burned them alive, and gave the survivors the Bible and said, you need to learn about Jesus. I learned that big facade, and I learned really why, because the native peoples were worshiping, quote unquote, a false god. Well, no, they weren't. They were worshiping a more powerful high god than the one inside the Bible. Okay, that was the reality. So all of a sudden, I started understanding that. I come back from learning with Raymond, and a friend of mine from the Philippines, her grandmother had liver cancer. She said, we can't afford the medicine, and it's not working anyway. But she's in a near coma. We don't know what to do. I said, get a bottle of water. I was in Florida at the time, which is where I am now. I said, get a bottle of water. We'll energize it. And you give it to Grandma when she wakes up. She did. Grandma walked out of that hospital 2 days later, totally fine. And I started doing that left, right, and center. I'll never forget a gentleman from Brisbane at $1 million home, and there were some ghosts inside, and he says, my wife and my baby won't go near this side of the home. And I said, okay. I charged him $1,000. I said, you pay me $500 now, $500 when it's clear. He did. He walked through after 15 minutes. He goes, I can't believe it. It's clear. And his wife and kid walked through it. Clear. He says, but I just got to wait a few more days to make sure it stays clear before I send you the $500. I said, okay. Then he connected me with Chris Gibson, Mel Gibson's brother. And I started connecting to some of Australia's royalty or semi-royalty and so forth, and created quite a name of healing people and removing evil. And evil and witchcraft is pretty rife in Australia, especially, in Melbourne and the South Flank there, as you probably know. So I have the power to remove that stuff, and remove it I do. And so this is what brings me here now to the point where I can't talk about cancer without possibly getting in trouble, but you can go see on my website doctors who have had stage 4 cancer, and after I worked with them, their health and vitality came back. It's amazing how that works. When you heal the light body, you heal the soul. And even now with knees, my ambition is to work with the pro athletes, so when they get a knee injury and they're out for a year with an ACL or MCL or what have you, with me, they'll be out for a couple weeks. And I've demonstrated that a few dozen times with various athletes and people already. So that's pretty normal for me right now. How does this work, you may ask? Go ahead and ask. I'm doing all the talking, Elisa. You got to ask me. How's that work?
Well, so that was going to be my question. So the information that you gathered, why, to start healing people, was that from Raymond? Mostly from what you learned from Raymond, or did the people the person from Thailand also kind of help you with the information as well?
Thailand opened up my psychic channel. That was it. It opened up my third eye. It opened up the side. And I, being an engineer and a chess player, I was very left brain oriented. So that opened up the intuitive side, and being able to sense things with my eyes closed was quite phenomenal for me at the time. Raymond Grace connected me to what we call spirit guides. You would call them angels. If I mention spirit guides at a Christmas party here, I'll get kicked out. If I mention angels, everyone will come stand around me. Okay, but anyway, the same thing. You can call them ETs. You can call positive ETs. Same thing. And so he showed me how to connect with them. And connect with them I did, and then I started connecting with more and more, building up my level of power. And I'll never forget, this lovely Aboriginal girl comes to my Facebook page. And she says, I don't have any money or anything, but I see you do what you do. My grandfather used to do that too, but he's passed away. Can you help me? And I tuned in and saw she was under a pile of darkness. We cleared the darkness. And her grandfather came right up to me, that Aboriginal face that is unmistakable. And he then asked me to donate $1,000 to an Aboriginal cause. This is in spirit, which I did. I Googled one and I donated. And since then, he's been helping me. So that's one of my spirit guides. And I'm getting chills as I tell that story. I don't know if you can feel them from there. But this is how you develop power, is by connecting to these high-level spirit guides. And some of these spirit guides are beyond what we call the frequency fence. Something few people understand, but is crucial to understand planet Earth, crucial to understand Jesus, who for the most part dominates the spiritual world, at least in 60 or 70% of it. And Jesus is real, but what most people are told about him is completely false, leading them astray. This is why your priests, nuns, preachers, zealots have no power. Most of them couldn't heal a sick bird, but they can preach and tell you about biblical verses for hours. But
so tell me about that, about what you're talking about, the frequency. What did you call it? The frequency fence.
Yeah. Okay. So you know what a fence is. And the farmer uses a fence to keep the sheep or the cattle, the herd, or what some call the goyim, in. Now, the farmer never cares about educating the sheep to be so healthy and enlightened to hop the fence and live in nature on their own. The farmer doesn't want that. He wants them big, fat, dumb, and stupid and be able to reproduce, right? That's what he wants. And that's very analogous here. The farmer on planet Earth, and planet Earth is a farm, they don't want the herd to be super enlightened and realize what's going on and break free and break their tentacles with the dark controllers. They want them big, fat, dumb, and stupid, misdirected. And that's how they use religion. And religion does a really good job of that. Really good. It doesn't matter which religion. The word religion comes from the Latin word religare, which means to withhold, to hold back. That's what religion means. And it is really good. So mind control is prevalent on planet Earth. You may have heard of things like CIA's MK Ultra, Hollywood, Disney, and so forth, how they control the kids and the kids' mind who watch their shows and so forth. Well, that's one version. Another version is mind control, is religion. Because religion, and I visited Africa a few times, religion keeps millions of people in order because of fear of quote unquote God. Okay, fear of this. Now, it has its purpose. It keeps most people honest and genuine, and there's nothing wrong with that. However, truth is not aligned with religion in many respects. But I'm not saying everything in religion is false. No, not at all. But you only have to put 2% of poison in the lemonade to kill everybody. You don't need it to be 98%. No, just a little bit of misdirection on the rudder will make the ship go to a completely different destination and never get home. And this is the case with religion. And, I kept asking, why can't the Pope heal? Jesus said, John 14:12, even the least among you can do the same as I and greater. Well, how many people can do that? None. So coming back to the fence.
Yes.
Right now, Eliza, Jeff, my new friend, there's about 70 people who've broken past the frequency fence, which means they've passed the barriers that they set up artificially through frequency fences, literally, so that people would get blocked when they would pray or meditate, or, people get together and come together for world peace and everyone donates $3.80 and, brings some cans to recycle, and world peace ain't happening too fast, as you notice. So their power is limited. However, the people who've broken past the frequency fence, they're the ones who can purify water at a distance. They're the ones who can stop the rain. They're the ones who can re-energize organs, awaken the dead, see with prophet-like, Nostradamus-like vision of what's happening. And so you got about 70 people now. In that 70 people, none of them are called the Pope, the Dalai Lama, Deepak Chopra. No. None of them are on your bestsellers list. None. In fact, it's pretty hard for most people to recognize that the ones on the bestseller list are the ones propagating the false and shallow teachings. Deepak Chopra couldn't heal a sick bird. He sold a lot of books, and he gets a very high speaking fee. Couldn't heal a sick bird. Okay?
Yeah, there's a lot of gurus out there. Yeah, definitely.
Look, the Dalai Lama is one of them. The Dalai Lama actually pitched the vax that was marked with 666, which should tell you exactly who the Dalai Lama is, and the Pope, and all the others that were pushing that garbage, that poison, that soul-robbing chemical that now thank goodness for Robert F. Kennedy and Mr. Trump for being willing to expose all this, and arrests and so forth, and jails and are coming. In fact, in Florida now, those vaccine companies are getting sued. They're going to have to pay up. Okay, so, and I know in Australia, people tell me, oh, we only wish we had that government here. And in England, they tell me that too. Well, it's going to happen, I think. The world is at a precipice right now. But coming back to the frequency fence, if you can break past the frequency fence, you can have the power to remove evil. You can have the power to remove the curses, remove the negative soul contracts, remove all the things that they do to us to limit our abilities. A few people know that when they do baptism, they're blocking the third eye. They're putting a spell on the third eye so you can't awaken. Okay? And I tell people, that's why they're at the birth and the death and the marriages, because they're bringing you into their soul harvesting cycle. That's not God. They want to call it God. When people tell me God bless, I say, which God? They say, well, God. Well, which God? And if you don't believe there's more than one, just read commandment number 1, which says, do not obey other gods before us. Okay? And even in the English version of the Bible, where it says God created heaven and earth, well, that's the English version. The Hebrew version basically says the Elohim created heaven and earth. Elohim is a plural term. It's like saying
Right.
Australian, Californians. It's a plural term. And that's who their gods are. And they are not high, vibrant, love, life, and light soaked beings. No, they're controllers. They're strictly controllers who demand to be worshipped, demand to have sacrifices brought to them. And in the Old Testament, there's plenty of evidence of that and so forth. So this is who most people are worshiping without a clue. And without a clue, most people are. That's why they have no spiritual power. And the government wouldn't have it any other way. The religions wouldn't have it any other way. They don't want those sheep to be so smart that they can hop the fence and go in the woods and live and be enlightened, vibrant. No, far from it. Does this make sense to you?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So tell me more. So the frequency fence is I'm gonna assume that it's a fence of frequency, right? A specific frequency that you have to rise above to be out of this fence. And I imagine that you're saying that this fence was created by who? So who created this fence?
Yeah, by the Earth controllers. They use Saturn and the Moon as part of the elements to create it. The Moon is not what most people think. The Moon is not a planetary object. It's not made of green cheese. Moon's a station. It doesn't rotate. Planets rotate. Moon does not rotate. Okay. The moon is what witches worship. And any police chief anywhere in the world, from Perth, Australia to Scotland or Siberia or where, they'll tell you at a full moon, chaotic behavior and criminal behavior go up. The moon is a beacon of chaotic energy. And it's beaconing that to planet Earth to keep people from achieving peace and harmony. So they're doing, the Earth controllers doing everything they can so people don't unite. People don't love each other. Instead, they, are divided. And they do a great job of dividing us. Left versus right, women versus men, gay versus straight, et cetera, et cetera. So that moon is what witches worship for a reason. And I tell people, you want to follow a dark teacher, watch if they worship the moon. Moon is what parasites, and parasites are the big cause of cancer, is now just coming out. Cancer now, 1 out of every 2.5 people are afflicted with cancer. They do a great job. That American Cancer Society, they do an incredible job of suppressing the cures and making sure everyone, or at best they can, get cancer. So they tell you they're researching cures. Well, they are researching them. Spreading cures, they're not. Okay, that's a fact. Results don't lie. So the reality is, parasites, worms and bugs and weird looking things and so forth, everyone's got them. And it's now known that in the 20th century, they removed all literature in most medical textbooks about parasites. Whereas in the 1700s, it was all over there. And Hulda Clark wrote a book called The Cure for All Cancers. And she said all cancers are caused by a parasite and a toxin put together. And boy, was she wise. Really wise. I was diagnosed with bladder cancer. And the butcher with a drug license, what you would call a medical doctor, he wanted to take out my prostate and bladder and have me live like an invalid. I said, no way, you're not cutting things out. He said, you got to do chemo and radiation right away. I looked at him, I said, excuse me, chemo and radiation cause cancer. Why would you recommend something that causes cancer for cancer? Answer me that. Yeah, well, and I don't back down. And they started staring at the floor and told me, well, that's the protocol we have to follow. Then they told me to get an MRI. Okay, I said, okay, I'll get an MRI, but I'm not getting that high contrast fluid injected into my veins, that radioactive stuff, which is a carcinogen. I said, why would you have me inject a carcinogen when I got cancer? Again, the same stupid response. They're not there to heal you. They're there to make sure you continue to keep the cancer. under the guise of removing it. And it's just a guise. So this is what you call modern medicine. And people who research this realize that Rockefeller was behind a massive amounts of this, is also behind the stupidity enforcement system, what you would call school. So coming back to the frequency fence, Aliza, I could, if you came to train as a healer with me, I could transfer the power and you could connect past the frequency fence and you would be healing people across the planet via the internet also. I can give you that key. Now, you have to keep the honor to keep the key, but that is transferable. And that's how Raymond transferred it to me. And that's how I can transfer it to students. But it's something that's very, very rare. And as I mentioned, your best-selling authors on healing don't have a clue about it. And one of the ways, simple way, and we do this in my healing sessions, I have group healing sessions. We purify tap water. We do a sequence of exercises, 10, 15 minutes, and everyone goes to taste their tap water and it tastes like mountain spring water. Well, how do we do that? Very simple. We bring the spirit of mountain spring water into their tap. That's it. No complicated answer. No wiggle your fingers and then do the hokey pokey and go around. No playing the banjo. No spreading sage oil. No dancing around the campfire with eagle feathers. No. You bring the spirit of mountain spring water right into their tap. If you have higher dimensional access, energy access, which means you're past the frequency fence, you can do that with ease. If someone's got a bad liver for whatever reason, you can energize the liver by bringing the spirit of a healthy liver right into their liver. Now, they have to be receptive to that. They have to be open to that. They have to be grateful for that, and a few other basic things, but not much more.
Well, yeah, I mean, the main thing is belief, right? If people don't have a belief in what they're doing, it's not going to work. So that's I believe it's paramount to the healing to work. What would
sure,
you
and
about that?
They don't have to absolutely believe it because they haven't seen it, but they can't disbelieve it. You see, the disbelief is what blocks it, right?
Right.
So, I've had many athletes, some 16-year-old kids, they don't believe anything that, they haven't seen on a sitcom or a cartoon, but if they don't disbelieve it, they don't block themselves. If they disbelieve it, then they block. But once they believe, and we connect their knee to the spirit of a healthy knee, and I'll ask him to send love to his knee, appreciate his knee, things like that, which for a 16-year-old football player in America is quite a stretch. But he did it because he wanted to walk, and all of a sudden, after being on crutches for 6 months and taking all these pills, 2 days later, he's out playing basketball again. That's a reality. And I've done this with Olympians and football players and even sports medicine specialists. This is something that when the rehab center owner with millions of dollars of equipment he didn't want to hear it. Okay, because they want people to go through and do their 8 months and 10 months of rehab, because that's how he makes his money. You don't want a guy like me that can reduce that in a couple of days, a couple of sessions. But the reality is, it is possible. And I think one of the reasons the quote unquote angels align with me is I've got this, and you probably haven't noticed it yet, Jeff, but this blunt personality to say it and break through rather than pussyfoot around with over diplomacy that accomplishes very little and offends nobody.
Hey, I want to talk about your fence there. I've actually seen that. First of all, I went down to Brazil to check out John Guide. I just wanted to see if you could have 3,000 people come through a week. And I investigated and I saw an electric blue fence. It was probably a couple of kilometres high and it encased his whole property, so he was actually protected. But when I went into New Mexico and Arizona, and I spent some time with the Navajo medicine man. We did some work on it. I found that in America you had a fence, and it contained the Americans. You guys are captured. You're like chooks in a bloody hen house. And I was thinking, how do I get out of this? And I remember I really had to find a spot. And when I found that spot, then I could send a thought out. There's only one person who picked up, and she lives on the Gold Coast, and she's Ukrainian. And she reached out to me on Facebook and said, "You're okay." And I said, "Thank you. I just wanted to know if I could get my message out." But you guys have got a huge fence over there across North America.
Yes.
I thought it was a military one to stop anybody EMF or anything else from other clandestine organisations. But today,
that's a fascinating story, Jeff. Fascinating example. Few people understand that, and they are so mired up in the facades, in the Santa Clauses, in the Jesus is coming to save me, which is exactly what the dark side wants.
Yeah.
To sit and wait and do nothing, eat chips and watch Seinfeld reruns, waiting for him to return. That's what the dark side wants. No chump is easier to overcome and control than someone sitting and waiting, believing in a complex book. You see, the truth is always simple, very simple. The Bible is not simple. There's a lot of profound wisdom in there, but it is not simple. And the things in there like turn the other cheek and pay taxes to Caesar. And the best one is be obedient to your earthly master, no matter how cruel. Those are slave instructions for slaves. And in previous translations of the Bible, they used the word slaves. Now, they changed it to make it more convenient. But this is not, quote unquote, God's word, unless you define who that God is. And if you say it's the Elohim's word, okay, that's accurate. But that doesn't sound as good as God. Okay? It even gets worse. You want to really understand that book of Genesis? Spell Genesis. You get Gene Isis. So when they say God created man in his image, well, his obviously is male pronoun, but in the Hebrew, it says Elohim created man in their image. So it's both male and female, their image. And they're telling you Gene from Isis, right there, book of Genesis. Gene from Isis, right there in front of you, hidden in plain sight. And Isis was the Anunnaki queen. Okay,
Yep.
So, in the book Gene Isis, they created man in their image, which means they took some smart chimpanzees and they bioengineered them to add a little more DNA. And what they actually did, and I know in Australia they can relate, is they made the white man and they made him more aggressive, more intelligent, and also more controllable. More controllable. Okay, yes. Yep. And then they had them go around and destroy the native peoples and destroy their teachings. Now, we were taught in the books, they were spreading the gospel of Jesus. Yeah, that's what we were told. Okay, no, they were destroying all the spiritual literature and peoples, and they did it on 3/4 of the planet. The 1/4 they couldn't reach was China and India, which is now we call that Eastern mysticism. That was planetary mysticism. And I don't have to go into examples of how your Aborigines were enslaved, just like our native peoples and so on.
So tell us, I don't want to run out of time before we hear about not only what you've done with the Healing Genius, but also really interesting with the work that you have done with helping the people in India with your doing the philanthropic work and helping the, oh my gosh, they're not adoption centers, but what is it that they're called?
Orphans.
Orphanages. Thank you.
So we sponsor 3 orphanages now. I mean, I've sponsored orphanages throughout the world on my travels, whether it be Russia or Thailand. Now, the Philippines. Now we're down to 2, Nepal and India. The one in the Philippines is closed. In fact, the one in the Philippines, when I told the head nun it was a Catholic orphanage, when I showed her that the Pope had 12 titles in Hebrew, Greek, and Latin, and each one of those 12 titles adds up to 666 because Hebrew, Greek, and Latin are numeric languages, right? So the numbers represent letters. She was stunned, and I told her some of the truth about the Catholic Church. In fact, you can even see on YouTube, the Pope declared Lucifer is God. That's their God. She quit the church. The orphanage fell apart, sadly. But she's one of the people who I've trained to heal now. She heals really well. So we sponsor, and if you go to my healinggenius.com site and you click on charities, you can see that. If you donate, we're very grateful. We donate a percentage of all revenues to help these charities, and these charities run by sincere individuals, not global organizations. So I make sure the money gets used for the kids, and we heal the children, and we heal the children in mass. I don't have to, have one of the children come up on Skype or Zoom and heal them. I can heal the whole orphanage at one time, and the director will just guide them to breathe in at a certain rate and so forth, the things that we need to get the mind quiet and the soul ready and receptive to be healed. So that's what we do. And I've saved a bunch of children in the hospital dying. One in particular, the orphanage is in Uluru, India. And one of the little girls had fallen ill. They brought her to the hospital. And the director messages me frantically. He says they're pumping drugs into her. She's fading fast. Her blood platelet count was really low and going lower. And he explained to me how a healthy child will have a blood platelet count between 400 and 500. Well, I had to Google what blood platelets were. I didn't know. I didn't need to know. I was in the Philippines at the time. They were in India. And I saw she had massive amounts of witchcraft on her. Why, I don't know. But this is what corrupts the soul, the light body.
Well, yeah, starseeds. So they know the bad guys know who are the light workers. They can see the light. They know when they're born. They can see it, and they'll come really fast to try to dim your light. So she probably is a big starseed coming in.
Yeah. So we removed the witchcraft, restored the light body, well, in about 5 minutes, and the same method I said, I'll energize this water you give to the girl. And she came back, and within an hour, her blood platelet count was right around 500, the upper limit. And the doctors in there couldn't believe it. And they were more than happy to pump drugs in the girl, and that kept her fading. Drugs will affect the chemical body. It does not affect the light body. And,
right.
And now, if you tell a doctors in America are well versed in calling people like me quacks. Okay. And even some of the morons that actually believe that stuff repeat that stuff without thinking. Higher truth is such that they've propagated the lie so well that when someone tells the truth, it sounds so strange. Isn't that funny?
It'll soon change.
Well, we're right at a precipice. Now, Edgar Cayce said forces of light will overcome the forces of darkness. And he said Russia will have a major role in overcoming Luciferian control of planet Earth. So you see the stuff Vladimir Putin's doing and not budging. Vladimir Putin requires everyone in Russia to farm organically. GMOs are not allowed in Russia. They expel GMOs the way you expel, narcotics. Wow, what a concept! You never hear about that on the press. Okay.
Yeah. So I have a question for you. Yeah. I'm sorry to cut you off, Ed. I did want to ask you something before we start running out of time. Okay. So, you know that we live in this planet of free will. And quite often back in the day when I was trying to help heal people, it came up several times that there are several contracts that we come to Earth to learn. There's several things we come to have a lesson. And when we try to heal others without their explicit approval, then we are messing with their contracts or what they're here to do. So, what do you do when you are healing someone that you have not specifically gotten their consent for healing or for doing something to their spiritual body?
So it's a very good question, and it's required. Jesus never healed anyone unless they came and asked in the Bible. You know, lots of people, I get lots of morons and skeptics that they, when they see my testimonials getting posted across Facebook or social media, they get, you know, all the bullshit. They say, why don't you just go to the hospital and heal everyone? Well, I don't have permission to. I don't have permission from the hospital or all those people. You can't just say I'm going to heal New York City because I believe it should be healed. I do believe that. I don't have permission to. Someone's got to ask you. And in the case, which is sometimes the case, where someone will come because their grandmother's sick, or in the case of the orphan I mentioned, where the orphanage director came to me. Okay, they're asking my help, but I still have to ask from that soul's guardian angels, will you give me permission? Do I have permission to do this? Now, if somebody comes direct and says, I need healing, they're giving you the permission. But in the case of where it's done by proxy, you have to ask permission. Okay, yep. Now I've never been told no, but at the same time, just like the Aboriginal story, right? That grandfather looked me up. That Aboriginal grandfather inspected me, and he came eye to eye with me and made sure I was honorable and true before he allowed me to access his granddaughter's soul. And it was quite an experience. And yet he's been helping me ever since. And he told me he's from planet Sirius, Sirius A to be specific. So I'm super thankful for that connection. I don't even know his name, but I know his spirit, and that's what matters. We can do, if you want, and I'll let you be the judge of this, but we can do a little healing 1-minute prayer here, raise the energy. And what's really special about this, Jeff, is that the recording, 1 year, 100 years from now, you'll still be able to feel the healing energy. Now, why do you think that is? Any idea, Lisa?
Because time doesn't exist.
Correct. We're going above space and time. That's exactly right. So if you'd like to, we can. Would you like to feel that?
That would be lovely.
So I'm going to instruct you to, and then for those listening, you just follow the instruction as if I'm instructing Aliza and Jeff here. Now, if you're driving a car, operating machinery, you got to take full responsibility for yourself. Don't do anything stupid. And this is better as a closed eye process. So if you can't close your eyes, don't. Okay. With that being said, when I count to 5, you just take a deep breath in and feel your love. Allow your mind to go empty. An empty mind is your most powerful level of intelligence. It's your most powerful awareness. There's one line in the Bible that says, be still and know that I am God. Well, how? Because the mind is the barrier between you and the infinite. You follow? So when you allow your mind to go still, then you become one with the infinite. Then it's really easy to energize your light body. Is that okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to count to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Breathe in. Allow yourself to go still. Empty. Mind's on. 3%. Let it go to empty. 1%. Empty. Stop trying to figure out what I'm going to do and just feel your love. Smile. Smile in every cell in your body. Go ahead and forgive 2 people that hurt you. And ask forgiveness for 2 people you may have hurt. And give the ultimate command vibrationally, meaning from your soul, I love myself. I forgive myself. One, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Slowly open your eyes whenever you're ready. And if you have some water, drink it. Okay. Jeff, you notice anything?
Great. 4 names came straight to mind straight away, very quick.
I couldn't hear you.
Oh, there were 4 names that came in really quick. It's really interesting.
Oh, 4 names.
Mm.
What were they?
Oh, human. Wait, as in, what would you like me to describe? Explain.
Your mic cut out. You might. So I didn't get a chance to hear. I don't know if Eliza did, but I did.
No.
Right. Got 4 females that came to mind, and some of them, 2 of them at least, were quite egregious. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So in your personal life,
Yeah.
the 2 you had to forgive and ask forgiveness from.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. You feel relieved and lighter as a result?
Yeah, I think at least mentioned before about no time, and then I think I've already had that experience. I think we've gone through deja vu. I think I had that experience on Sunday night, Monday morning, and I've been feeling a lot lighter since Monday morning. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So you understand how sometimes you get that time jump, and so it's almost like you're getting prepared for this moment.
Yeah, look, time plays, it's 4:00 and then you glance again, it's 8 p.m. and then you glance again, it's November, and it was just February, last week. And the Mayan calendar explains that, how the spiral of time gets tighter and tighter and tighter. The Roman calendar doesn't explain that, which it's kind of linear. Every year is 365 days. But the Mayan calendar, it spins in a spiral, and the spiral gets tighter. So each spin is shorter and shorter, if that makes sense to you, like a cone. And so this is the Earth's yogic cycle, which Swami Sri Yukteswar wrote some great books about. And so Earth is coming to a precipice. And will we destroy each other? Will we end up in war? Will we figure out the cause of all these wars? Will we figure out that the controllers are beaconing the moon? Will we figure out that Israel's chosen by God and that God is Satan, and the star on their flag is the star of Saturn and Satan, and the Mossad credo is war by deception? Not peace, war by deception. Will we figure that out in time? Or will we let our planet be controlled and destroyed and people hating each other? That's a choice that the universe has to make and the earthly population has to make.
Well, and that's really based, I at least in my opinion, on the vibration that you carry. So when we concentrate on whatever we concentrate on, we grow. Our energy grows, our attention grows, whatever we focus on. So if we focus on what we want to build instead of what we see right now, what people are seeing. That's how we get out of the matrix, right? So the matrix will be open and playing until the last player leaves. So the best way to do that is raise your vibration and stay focused on what it is that the beautiful future is going to be like, and leave all that other stuff behind. And that's how we get there.
And maybe not on this planet. Maybe this planet is a stepping stone, kind of like high school, to see how good your grades are, see if you qualify to go to other places. And if you don't qualify, you have to do it again, right? Like what they call getting left back in high school. So sometimes that happens too. And most people don't know, you talk about The Matrix, and it was a great movie, but most people don't know it's there. Most people don't know about the frequency fence. They don't know the game's rigged. They don't know all the lies they've been taught, and this is where they can't make their way out because the map's been changed. Okay, when you're operating with a false map, it's really tough to navigate.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And so as we closed down the show, what would you like to leave our listeners with? What kind of information about yourself or about the universe or anything that comes to mind?
Well, everything can be healed. You can connect to the infinite power and the infinite wisdom of the universe anytime you want, and you don't need anyone else to do so. Now, granted, you need to learn how to do it, but for those who can show you how to do it, treat that opportunity, that path, as something very special. Because once you connect to infinite power and infinite wisdom, you'll never feel weak and stupid again. And it's easy to feel weak and stupid going up against governments and corporations and, these big, dark, evil forces that try to control us. But when you connect to the infinite power of the universe, that's gone. So when Jesus said, even the least among you can do the same as I and greater, he was serious. But they omitted how you do it for a reason. Okay? So you have that power. Find a way to do that, and you'll be scot-free. That's my advice. And Jeff and Elise, I want to thank you again for having me on. I'm more than grateful.
Absolutely. Our pleasure. Jeff, anything else from your side?
I've deliberately got the screenshot behind me, right?
Wow. Yeah.
Now, the screenshot is Coal Canyon in Arizona. It's part of the Hopi Navajo reservation, yeah? So we're given the privilege of going in here. Now, what's actually happened is that in the 50s, there was a geological survey carried out and found that the reservation is filled with uranium, gold, copper, and coal. There's a few other minerals as well. But in the background, you'll just see underneath the layers, it only goes about a meter down, so it's at a yard, and you'll see the coal seam. And so anyway, you can understand where I'm going with this. It's filled with minerals. So they created the Freeze-Bennett Act, and they gave the opportunity for the Hopi and Navajos to leave their reservations and go to a community setup called Tuba City. And if they decided to take the free housing, the water, and the electricity and all that stuff, then they'd have to sign off that they weren't allowed back on the reservation to build their hogan. And so a lot of them did leave, but those ones who stayed behind, it meant that a large coal company in the United States, well known, would like to get hold of that coal, but there's still got people living on it. And so then they introduced the fact that you couldn't renovate, you couldn't restore, you couldn't rebuild your homes. And so a lot of those hogans you've probably seen are not all that satisfactory. And
sure.
So you couldn't repair any, in the houses that were built on there, you couldn't do any repairs. So then they introduced some years ago the grandmother and grandfather clause that says once they die, the next generations can't live on the reservation. It's a form of long-term genocide. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, of course. Now, here's a question for you. Do you know why all those canyons are there? Grand Canyon and so forth? That area was the North Pole in a previous Yugic cycle. So there were glaciers moving through there. And that area is a vortex because the North and South Poles now are vortexes. We know there are ETs living inside the Earth that go inside both holes. Enough insiders and whistleblowers have shared that. The secrets of Antarctica are out. But in a previous Earth cycle, before the shift, that was the North Pole. And that's why you have those canyons there, and that's why the vortex is there, and those Hopis have some deep, deep wisdom. Talk about being beyond the frequency fence. Oh, they know it, and they have star connections, star friends that are beyond this world for sure.
Hey, just carrying on for something else. When that little incident turned up 4 or 5 years ago, and you were obliged to take the government mandate of putting your body with some liquid that you weren't aware of, those people who didn't participate in that, somehow or another, over pretty close to 1 million Australians, all turned up at Canberra. All turned up, over close to 1 million people. Not once did mainstream media give it any attention or focus. But then the issue that I mentioned to a guy called Michael Gray Griffiths, who's one of the few investigative journalists in Australia, was that those people who came, they were working on a different wavelength. They weren't working on traditional radio or TV or newspapers. They were working on a different frequency altogether. They just felt intuitively and instinctively that they needed to go down to the seat of power and make a statement just by turning up. Yeah.
Right.
So there is another frequency in there, and it's a network of people who've been sprinkled all around the planet, gradually coming together, like the jigsaw puzzles coming together. And like having a guy like you on tonight and your time just only enhances the fact that people are not alone. There is someone out there who's waving the flag.
Yes, and the press is controlled, as we have seen. I wrote a blog article called The War Over the Children, and it specifies and focuses on how they put fluoride, which is known to dumb down the brain and cause cancer, fluoride, GMOs, artificial sugars, and all these other toxins and poisons, and they're putting them in baby food. Okay, the demonic cartoons from Disney and a variety of studios and so forth. Why are they doing that? Well, the other side, the side aligned with love, life, and light, is sending souls to planet Earth with much higher DNA. So this is why you see some 5-year-olds being able to play the piano incredibly well, or the drums or guitar, or, do some incredible things. Because these indigo children, as some call them, have much higher DNA, and they remember skills and talents from their past lives. And this is the battle going on. It's a war over the children. And the dark side is trying to vaccinate these kids and stupefy them, dumb them down, debilitate them. And the love, life, and light side is just sending these higher DNA individuals down to planet Earth. So this is really what's going on above and beyond the theater. And you see evidence of that. So yes, people are awakening. They know that vaccine was nothing more than a ploy. We know now Anthony Fauci is going to be in jail. And in my opinion, he should be beheaded. And that's too kind. But he was just a figurehead. There was a whole movement behind him. Okay. And it wasn't just him. He was just a spokesman for it. So people like Bill Gates and others, who control the World Health Organization, have been caught saying, they want planetary reduction, and vaccines are the way to do it. So this is no mystery. And now they're coming up, and Britain has seen it, the digital identity card, okay, which is, again, the mark of the beast. Do not accept it. They'd have to shoot me before I accepted it, but They shoot me, I go through a half a second of pain, and then I float up into my light body. And maybe I'll have a choice to come back and harass them like they've been harassed. Okay, some people can do that. So, and they know that. So, the dark side is falling apart. The clutches on Earth is falling apart, but it's not. It's 3 steps forward, 2 steps back kind of thing. And I live in Florida, Jeff. I was watching Australians, have many friends in Australia on social media, and they would post those videos of policemen coming up to their front door and saying, "Did you post this? We're taking you to jail. We have the right to stand our ground. We have the right to guns. Someone did that to me. I could fill them full of 9 millimeters of lead because they're entering my property and attacking me, and I have the right to stand my ground, right to defend myself." And the police chief would give me a commemoration award for defending myself. So, there's spots on this planet that won't tolerate that. And that's why I came to Florida. I was locked down in Ukraine during the COVID crapola. And I came to Florida because it was one of 2 states in America, Texas and Florida, that didn't require masks or vaccines. Okay. So, the reality is, anything that the government says to improve your health, watch out. Anything the medical system says to improve your health, watch out. And some of these doctors are well-meaning, and some of them are naive and as dumb as a cork. And they will just prescribe to you what their protocol says they can do, and it's bad for you. And that's really sad, and I've experienced that firsthand.
Okay. So we're putting your email up there. How do they get hold of you? We've got your website up there. And and you've actually explained yourself very well. You've told the 2 points of views, and I'm very grateful for that. Thank you very much.
Jeff, thank you so much for having me on. Aliza, really a pleasure meeting you. Thank you for your wisdom and sharing as well.
All right.
Thank you.
Right,
thank you for the healing as well.
Well, nice that you turned that negative into a positive in life, and the energy of capitalism in terms of money is flowing your way.
Okay. Much love to all of you.
Okay,
and
mate.
to everyone who's listening.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right.